Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of No Huddle with Zach Arndt. And today we're going to be taking a look at The Ohio State University, led by head coach Ryan Day, offensive coordinator Kevin Wilson, new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, came from Oklahoma State. We're going to give a little preview for this upcoming 2022 college football season. Some key players returning for the Buckeyes. They have quarterback C.J. Stroud, might be the best quarterback in the country. He finished top 3 in Heisman a season ago. Running back Travion Henderson might also be the best running back in the country. He ran for 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns last year. Jackson Smith-Njigba, the best wide receiver in the country, returning. He had a breakout Rose Bowl. He broke multiple records in that game. He's due for a ginormous season in 2022. They did lose some key players, though. Wide receivers Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Last season, Garrett Wilson had 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 15 yards per catch. Chris Olave had 936 yards receiving, 14.5 average with 13 total touchdowns. They lost Haskell Garrett, their big man in the middle last year on that D-line. A rising star, I have two. Heading into this year, I have safety Ronnie Hickman, along with defensive back Kai Stokes. Looking at their 2022 recruits, they got the number 1 linebacker in C.J. Hicks, who I think is going to be an instant impact guy this season. Ohio State struggled last year to stop the run. C.J. Hicks, that's a guy you can plug in right away as a true freshman, and he can give you production. Sonny Styles, he reclassified from 2023 to 2022. The 5-star safety out of Pinkerton, Ohio. His brother's on Notre Dame. Many thought he was going to go to Notre Dame. He ended up choosing the Buckeyes, and he's also a guy I think can play as a freshman. He might not start. I mentioned Ronnie Hickman and Josh Proctor are going to be in that safety spot, most likely. Bringing new defensive coordinator Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State is huge. His biggest responsibility for Ohio State is probably going to be to fix the secondary. He brought Tanner McAllister over from Oklahoma State, one of the best safeties in the country a year ago. You put him with Josh Proctor and Ronnie Hickman in the back, and you have corners Cameron Brown and Denzel Burke. Because remember, Sevyn Banks did transfer, so it's most likely going to be Cameron Brown or Jordan Hancock starting at corner number 2, because Denzel Burke solidified himself as a true freshman last year at the first corner spot. Looking at this depth chart, starting with the offense, quarterback C.J. Stroud, running back Travion Henderson. They have very solid backups at each position. You have Kyle McCord at quarterback, running back Mayan Williams. Many of you probably know who that is. And then Evan Pryor is someone to keep an eye on. He had a huge spring game. He was also a very highly rated prospect in 2021. Looking at the tight end room, they have G. Scott Jr. and Joe Royer there. Wide receiver might be the best wide receiver room in America. They're my number 1. They have Julian Fleming, the former number 1 overall prospect in 2020 class. Jackson Smith-Njigba, as I already mentioned, I think he's the best receiver in college football. Rising star Marvin Harrison Jr., who broke out in the Rose Bowl game a year ago. They bring in former 5-star receiver Emeka Egbuka, Jaden Ballard, and Caleb Burton, pair of 2 freshmen right there. Emeka Egbuka, I think he's going to be Chris Olave 2.0. You watch the highlights, you watch the tape, you go back and watch the spring game, highlights from spring. It looks just like Chris Olave out there, even rocking the same number. Offensive line, they bring back 3 starters. Parrish Johnson at left tackle, Luke Weipler at center, and right tackle DeJuan Jones. 3 very solid linemen. I think they'll all be first or second team Big Ten. They also have 5-star Donovan Jackson, who's a sophomore, who's a 5-star in 2021. He's going to step in and play left guard this year, or right guard. Just depends where they put Matthew Jones, the senior. Moving the defensive line. This should be one of the best defensive lines in college football. The potential is high. Last year was obviously a disappointment. But looking ahead, JT Tuamaloa, Jerron Cage, Taryn Vincent, Zach Harrison, Jack Sawyer. They're loaded up front. Zach Harrison's been the guy who's getting all the attention these last couple years. Preseason Big Ten, last couple years. But I think JT Tuamaloa and Jack Sawyer are guys to keep an eye on. Taking that starting job from him. He did start last year. I don't think they're going to hand him the starting job this year. When you have 2 former top 5 players in 2021, I mean, JT's got all the talent in the world. Zach Harrison's been here. He's a senior. These guys have a lot of potential. They're ready for this, I think. Even inside, you have Taron Vincent, who's returning from last year. Tyleik Williams is coming back. Moving to linebacker, you have Tommy Eichenberg and Steel Chambers. Remember Steel Chambers, the former running back in high school. Switched over to linebacker. Chip Trainum and Taraja Mitchell, also at outside linebacker. CJ Hicks, I mentioned earlier in the video. He might steal a starting job, maybe not early in the season. Maybe by that Iowa game or at Penn State. Teams that are probably going to run the ball a majority of the game. Going to need linebackers in there to stop the run. CJ Hicks, I think he'll be ready. I already talked about the corners. Cameron Brown, Denzel Burke, Ronnie Hickman starting. You have Josh Proctor and Tanner McAllister also in the back end. CJ Stroud a year ago, he threw for 4,400 yards, 44 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Heading into 2022, he's definitely a top 3 Heisman candidate. Many people have him winning it. Right now I have a 3-way tie. I think 3 guys can all go get it. I think 3 guys should be the favorite, and quarterback Caleb Williams from USC, CJ Stroud from Ohio State, and then Bryce Young, Alabama. Travion Henderson, as I mentioned, he had 15 touchdowns last year. Mayan Williams had 3. Evan Pryor, he only had 21 carries a season ago. I expect that number to jump. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 1,600 yards, 17 average, and then 9 total touchdowns. Looking at some team stats, they were first in offensive efficiency, 81st in defense. That's why Ryan Day, he usually hired within the team guys that have been there. He went out, got Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State, wanting to get that inside the top 25. Offensive explosive plays, they were first in the nation. They were 4th in finishing drives, and turnover margin, they were +9 on the season, which was good for 15th national. Those stats were good for an 11-2 record last season, 8-1 in the Big Ten, and they won a great game in the Rose Bowl against Utah, 48-45. Looking ahead to 2022, I have the Buckeyes going 12-0. They open up the season against the Notre Dame team, who has a lot of questions. Who's going to be quarterback? If it's Tyler Buchner, that doesn't give me all the confidence in the world that Notre Dame is going to be able to be competitive. Obviously, line of scrimmage, Notre Dame's going to be ready. But quarterback, can they keep up with Ohio State? Ohio State's probably going to have the best offense in the country. I just don't see Notre Dame being able to keep up with them. They play Arkansas State and Toledo the next 2 games. Should be blowout wins. Wisconsin comes to town. That should be a win. Once again, if Ohio State doesn't fix the rush defense, Braylon Allen, Wisconsin, they run the ball a lot. It could be a good game. Rutgers, that should be an easy W. At Michigan State, same thing. I mean, Michigan State a year ago, probably the worst pass defense in the Power 5, and they lost 49-7 to the Buckeyes in Columbus last year. If Mel Tucker doesn't get the pass defense figured out, it's going to be the same result this season. Iowa, always a trick game for Ohio State, but it is in Columbus, so I have the Buckeyes winning. At Penn State, now if this was a whiteout, I might think about choosing Penn State here, but it's at noon, so without a doubt, I'm going to choose Ohio State in that game. At Northwestern, should be a blowout win. Indiana, man, just like Rutgers and Northwestern, like, are they going to be able to score points? I don't think so. That should be a win. Ohio State at Maryland. Now, this could be a trap game. It's before Michigan. Ohio State's going to be focused on Michigan, obviously. Rematch, revenge game, all that. Big rivalry. But it's at Maryland. That offense, Maryland probably scored about near 50 points a game at the end of the year, multiple times. I think Ohio State's going to win. I think it'll be an offensive game, and obviously Ohio State's going to have a better offense, so I'm going to choose the Buckeyes there. Michigan comes to Columbus. I don't think they're going to win this season. I don't think Michigan's going to get 2 in a row on Ryan Day, especially in Columbus. Last season was Michigan's year. I think Ohio State's going to get the defense figured out, especially by the end of the season. Like I said, that Wisconsin game earlier in the season, maybe Ohio State's still getting it figured out. That could be a close one. I still think Michigan's going to keep it close, but I have Ohio State coming out on top, finishing 12-0, making the playoff. And yeah, they're probably a favorite to win the championship this year. Then Bama and Georgia, probably the top 3. Before I finish the video, I want to mention 2 assistants that Ryan Day added. Tim Walton and Perry Eliano to help out the secondary. They sent many secondary players from Cincinnati a year ago, Kobe Bryant, Sauce Gardner, to the NFL, so that's something to keep an eye on. I think the secondary is going to be a lot better, and it could be in big part to Tim Walton and Perry Eliano. That's going to do it for today's video, guys. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I hope you all have a great day. I'll catch you in the next one.